This is Slasher here at the last day of Valve's Dota 2 Championships at the International. Finals going on right now with Alliance down 2-1 to Na'Vi. And I'm here with Draskyl. Talks to us about the tournament and the final going on right now. So it's not over yet, but Alliance has now lost more games in the final than they have in the last week. What is the difference going on right now compared to everything else that you've seen so far?
Well, just like any other team, I think Alliance are probably suffering from nerves. I mean, you get to the finals, and it's $800,000 in difference between first and second place. So you get there, any team's going to feel a little bit rattled. But Na'Vi's been here 3 years in a row. They have the LAN experience, they have that advantage. And not only that, but sure, Alliance had dropped a game to DK this tournament, but they didn't lose with their own style. They lost with their own style to Na'Vi to an extent that they actually changed their game plan completely, which they haven't done before. The second game, where Na'Vi won, they've done the first time I've ever seen them run that kind of a strategy before, and it just didn't end up working out for them.
I mean, no matter what happens in this last game, it could go either way. When I had talked to Ake from Alliance before, they seemed pretty confident in how they're going to go in against Na'Vi in the winners bracket finals, and they executed seemingly perfectly. What is different now in these finals compared to those last two games?
Well, I think Na'Vi are a team who, if anything else, they adapt better than probably anybody. Alliance are widely known for a team who do one thing, but they do it the best in the world. But when you're fighting against adaptation, it's like you can bring in something new that they haven't seen before. Like who does mid-wisp? You see it and you're like, you think about it, and it's actually brilliant, but at the same time, it's unexpected. So Alliance, even though they are the best at what they do, you can still catch them off guard.
Alliance was telling me yesterday they wanted Na'Vi to use Wisp because they felt like Na'Vi wasn't the top-tier team to use, you know, that hero as some of his other teams. Do you feel like this is biting them a little bit back now?
I think it is, yeah, because the thing about Wisp is he's so great at utilizing the map, and when Alliance play, that's their main goal. They love to utilize the map. They love to just have full map control, dominate, asphyxiate you with a gold lead, or just win in like 16 minutes, I think, was the first game time. So when they give away that, they're not respecting their opponents, and they're not respecting the hero either.
Now, it's the first time in the International we've seen two Western teams into the finals. What do you attribute the success the Western teams have had this weekend?
Well, I actually heard some of the Chinese commentators talking with one of the translators, and they were saying that there aren't a lot of tournaments right now for the Eastern scene, which I think does kind of hurt them because obviously the more competition, the more it breeds how good the teams are, and the Western scene almost was oversaturated with tournaments. There were so many that you could possibly compete in. So I think the more you play, obviously, the better it's going to be. Alliance especially, they've been together for, I think, give or take a year now, and they've been practicing the whole time. Na'Vi have had their lineup for 5 or 6 months, I believe, and those are the two outside of China, obviously, or the Eastern scene that have been together that long. So just having that stability, having everybody stay together, and just go for one common goal, I think has pretty much been the difference.
Now, while Alliance and Na'Vi both won major tournaments in China these past few months leading up to the International, Orange also got third, leaving China at a top 3 after such domination last year. Was this expected at all to you, even with the lack of tournaments?
Orange are a team that can surprise just because of their individual player skill. Obviously, have people like Mushi, KYXY, fantastic players. The big problem that Orange has always had is they lack a common goal. It's like sometimes they do really well in the laning phase, they get to the mid game, and their decision-making just seemed to be a little bit lacking. But they came in, they had amazing game plans, they stuck to their pure aggression, which I love, because whenever you have individual skill, that's what you want to do. You want to force the issue, you want to take fights all the time. They're fantastic team fighters. And it wasn't necessarily a huge shock that they got this far. I actually thought they were going to get taken out by DK, but it didn't end up happening. So maybe a little bit of an upset, but still, Orange has always been a really strong team.
So, Noel, while these 3 teams are doing great, the rest of the teams, as we've seen after each International, a lot of roster changes, a lot of team blow-ups. What do you expect to be happening on both the Eastern and Western side in Dota? Do you expect there to be even bigger changes than we've seen in the past?
Maybe. I think the North American scene, Western scene in general, is going to shift. They always call it like the great reshuffling after every International because teams just want to get in a better place to start practicing for the next year. But I think it's a double-edged sword because when you go into it and you have the mentality of, I just want to change my team until I get something I'm comfortable with, I think it actually, in some senses, can make the team weaker because you want to try to get through some sort of adversity to make a strong bond between the players. Obviously, Na'Vi, before they changed their roster post-TI2, they've been together for an extremely long time, ever since TI1, where they decided to get rid of art style and replace him. So I feel like it's tricky because you want 5 players who get along. You want 5 players who want to hang out outside of the game and not just play Dota. I think that's another huge thing that people don't really get, and why this game is so much more difficult to be successful at. You know, you want people who not only are great at the game, get along well, but they can play together. So I think there will be another reshuffling. I know at least 2 teams who are changing players. Not going to say who, because I'm not allowed to say who, but yeah, it's going to happen.
Oh, that's my job to find out. I'm sure by the Dota community it'll be only a week before that happens. Now, as a caster, of course, and we've been talking to a lot of players, but you're the one who's, of course, broadcasting the games this weekend. How has the International been for you as a caster in front of such a huge audience?
It's electrifying, you know. The stage actually shakes when the audience cheers. They stand up, they throw their signs up in the air, and it's overall just been fantastic. Even better than it was last year, I think. And that was my first time casting something of this magnitude. But this year I came in, I was more excited than anything else. You know, just being invited is a huge honor. But just the people in general, they come up to you, they say they love what you do, and there's no real better reward than loving what you do and having people love you for it. So it's been fantastic.
Has everything that you've wanted to do in the broadcasting gone well for you?
I think in terms of casting, it's improved, but there's always a step up. You know, you can always be better. I think my commentary in particular, there are a couple of things that I think I could have mentioned or I could have brought up in hindsight, but you're always going to have stuff like that. So my casting personally, of course, I can improve. As a duo, a lot of people were saying that it was maybe underperforming in terms of what we're actually capable of, but we also weren't together for that long either prior to the event.
Now, the International is bigger than it's ever been. We were just talking a bit before the interview. You know, how do you think about everything going from TI1 to TI2 to TI3, where we are now? What do you expect the future to hold for this game and this event?
Well, I had expectations at TI2. You know, coming into the next year, TI2 finished, I was feeling pretty good about it. You know, it was very accepted. Everybody loved it. This year blew my mind. Like, the difference between walking around Benaroya Hall last year and this year was a difference between me walking around relatively unnoticed and people not letting me go to where I needed to go. I was trying to get backstage, and there were just people lining up to talk to me, you know, autographs and things like that. So for me personally, the difference has been like day and night. So for next year, I don't even know if I can have expectations because I think they're just going to be exceeded anyway.
What do you think about Valve and the way they're handling the game, the way they're handling, you know, running an esports event? Do you feel like they've taken bigger steps than they ever have before for the Dota and the community?
I think Valve are incredibly smart with how they do things. Like, the compendium idea just in general was ingenious, just having the capability of people directly putting into something that they love. And just that idea alone just goes to show the ingenuity of the company and how much farther they can push this game. So I think they've done fantastic. I don't really know what else they could do. I'm sure they have ideas because they're Valve and I'm not, but still, I was more than pleased.
Well, thank you, Draskyl, for the interview. Game 4 is starting, so we're going to go back and watch. Anything else you'd like to say?
Just shout out to everyone who supports us. It's an honor to be here, of course, and shout out to Valve for Dota 2 and all you guys watching.
Thank you. And go back to the analyst desk now.
All right, I will. See you.
Stay tuned to GameSpot.com/esports for coverage all weekend long, the International 3.